Hey, everybody. Here I am, Jay Real, and I've got a guest with me. This is Brandon. Hey, Brandon. Um,
How you doing? Thanks for having me on.
well, thank you for joining me because it's been a long time since I've done a nighttime show, a Being Real show. Not since uh, had did the shows, talking about the horror films and things like that, and with Noah. And he's been dealing with some health issues. And been looking for someone to join me on the nighttime shows, because I've been doing the midday shows with my sister. And we're just kind of free form, those shows, But the stuff I do in the evenings, I like to have more of a theme, talk a little bit more of a have a little more of a subject, to talk about, even though I'm open to talking about anything. But and you you had expressed some interest in joining me, and I'm certainly glad you are. Um, and just real quick, you want to kind of introduce yourself? Like me, I guess you're a friend. You're fans of the Dead Pit stuff.
Oh yeah, I love the Dead Pit guys. I was really listening to them when I shouldn't have been because I started when I was in junior high, and I would go to the library in town. So I'd ride my bike up there and watch them on YouTube. And they used to have you remember the little disclaimer before the video?
Yeah,
Would say
yeah,
either turn the video off or shut the f up. And one
yeah.
time I didn't have my earphones plugged in all the
He was
way.
saying with that low voice,
It was like, yeah, it was like, turn the video off or shut the up. And then the librarian's like, hey, turn it.
So
But,
you grew up with Dead Pit. Yeah.
oh, yeah, I used to listen to them all the time. I was one of the lucky kids that my parents let me watch or listen to whatever I wanted to, pretty much.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just
My parents were that way. My parents were paying like, my mother worked nights at a hospital for a mental hospital, and my father worked during the day running a sporting goods store and bait shop and all that. So it basically, me and my sister Kathy, it's just like
oh,
you raise
and the
yourself,
cat and the
take care of
cat
yourself.
just jumped up there.
What's the cat's name?
Her name's Sassafras, but I call her Groucho because she got the little mustache.
Ah, cool.
It's
Hey,
like it.
yeah, show it all. I love cat. I'm a cat person. I've got a bunch
See,
out. Oh,
don't you look like a little Groucho Marx?
yeah, a little Groucho, or we don't want to say Hitler, but
Oh no, or Chaplin staff.
Chaplin, yeah, Chaplin. Uh,
Yeah, that's another thing too. I'm really into the old stuff because I even watch silent films too.
Me too. Yeah, me too. And
There's a
we'll talk about a recent film which goes back to a silent film pretty soon.
yeah.
But uh, and when you had mentioned how much you like the old Universal horror films or Universal monster
Yeah.
films, and there's been kind of late sort of a resurgence of of the Universal stuff and what they still consider Universal horror films or Universal monster films. Abigail, Renfield, uh, and Lee Winnell, who did a updated version of The Invisible Man I think in 2020, which was really good. I thought was really well done.
Oh yeah.
And
I was surprised by it.
yeah. And so let's speak about his latest offer, which is Wolfman. Not the
The
Wolfman, just Wolfman. And when I heard about the premise of this, I was really excited. Now, I'm rarely able to go to the theater and actually see a movie in the theater, so I have to wait for something to stream. So I'm still waiting. Nosferatu, they still want like $20 to rent it, so I'm waiting for it to come down. I haven't seen Nosferatu yet, um, but when I heard of the premise of the Wolfman, is that they were going to go sort of a body horror sort of theme to it, where kind of like Cronenberg stuff, or kind of like The Fly, where the wolf curse was going to be a slow sort of build, where the body is slowly turning into a wolf. And I was like excited about that idea. I just thought, oh, that sounds great. I can't wait. But well, you saw it, so let's get your review of Wolfman.
It was dreadful. It was. I normally don't like being that harsh on movies because I'm a wannabe filmmaker and they're actually out there doing it. But it's one of those things that sounds good on paper till you actually see it. And the Monster Squad, Wolfman has nards. Wolfman has mange. He looks like a mangy wolf. And this is the first time I've ever seen a Wolfman lose hair. He's like a balding Wolfman. I didn't know whether or not to scream or call the ASPCA or something. I felt sorry for him. He was is really bad. And if you wouldn't have told me he was the Wolfman, I wouldn't have known because he looked like Wrong Turn mutants or something. And the moon doesn't matter. He's in the daytime. He can run around in the daytime. There's no wolf lore. There's no silver bullets. He's just a hairless Wolfman. And if that sounds basic, that's kind of what the movie is. There ain't nothing there. It's just they go out to the woods. He gets scratched by what looks like a wino or something, and he becomes a hairless Wolfman. There's not much of a plot. There's really no plot to it.
Yeah, I have watched a review, and I forget his name, but someone who I watch pretty frequently, and talked about how much he enjoyed his Invisible Man movie, and so he was really excited about what he was going to do with Wolfman. Yeah. And he said it was, like you said, a crushing blow.
Yeah, because there's no plot to it. It's basically he kind of transforms, chases him around the house for about an hour, and it's a really bad design. It might be worse than the 2010 Nightmare on Elm Street makeup. That's how bad I thought it was. And like the Invisible Man, there's so much there to it about her being in an abusive relationship and the Invisible Man messing with her, and she's in the asylum, and that she's not crazy, but they think she is crazy because and there's so much meat there, and it's just like this was, like I'm drinking a pivovar. It has a lot of flavor to it. It's almost like this is the Wolfman. I took a bottle of water and I just poured it in there.
And diluted it, yeah. So.
Kind of tastes like Wolfman a little bit, not much. And that's the main thing. Like I don't care if a movie's bad or whatever, but if it's boring, that's like the ultimate sin,
Yeah.
I just can't stand a boring film. And bless my friend Lewis's heart, I twisted his arm to take me. Come on, Wolfman, it's gonna be killer and all that stuff, and he was just like. I got to see his face. He was just like,
well, and just the premise too, to me, sounded good. That it wasn't going to be like your typical Wolfman transformation, or even like American Werewolf thing, where it was going to be a sort of a slower, almost like an infection.
A movie that did that good was the remake of The Fly with was it Jeff Goldblum?
Yeah, well, the David Cronenberg.
He slowly transforms, but you care. You care about his relationship with Sigourney Weaver, was it? I think it was. Or something.
Gina Davis.
Gina, you care about their relationship, and you actually kind of feel bad when he's the Fly. Over here, I was just like, damn, is it almost over yet?
Yeah.
But Nosferatu, and I was so hyped because Nosferatu was amazing. I loved it.
I'm really looking forward to seeing that because that's another one. And speaking of time when you like silent films, one of the greatest silent films ever is Nosferatu. It's so creepy. Who's the actor that plays Nosferatu? But he's
Max Schreck, I think it was.
And that Willem Dafoe movie, Shadow of the Vampire, which is the story of the making of Nosferatu, and the premise being that he really was a vampire. The director just hired a vampire. He needed a good vampire, so he hired a vampire. So. And when you watch Nosferatu, the original silent film, you can almost believe it. You can almost believe that's a fucking vampire. That's a real vampire.
For the makeup for the time, was amazing because when you look at the 20s Nosferatu, it's like, well, they didn't really have the best of technology back then, so I could see someone be like, they found some goofy looking guy and just put him in the movie or something.
I found a vampire. But
Yeah.
and the use of shadow in that film was just amazing. Everything about
Oh
that.
yeah, when he's going up the stairs,
In
and
one stage, you see that shadow and those long fingers, and oh gosh, yeah, it's a great.
Where I first saw Nosferatu at?
Where?
He was on an episode of SpongeBob. That's the first time
Yeah.
I didn't even know what the hell Nosferatu was. I was just a little kid watching Nickelodeon, and he was turning the light switch on and off at the Krusty Krab. And then I found they used to have them dollar DVDs at Walmart. I don't know if you remember them in the real thin cases.
Yeah. I still have some of them.
There was a one that was Nosferatu and the Hunchback of Notre Dame, and I watched those, and I was like, "Oh shit, Nosferatu is like a real thing."
Well, and then something that Noah had brought up is I think the wife of the original writer, of Dracula, had sued the makers of Nosferatu because basically it's telling the story of Dracula. They just changed the name to Nosferatu, but it's the story of Dracula, and won the suit, and every copy was ordered to be destroyed of Nosferatu, and it was, but of course, there was a few hiding, and a few were found later, many years later, decades later, before it was finally seen by the public, because they were supposed to destroy all the copies because basically it was telling the story of Dracula, and but not paying any royalties or anything.
Oh yeah, it's a blatant. I hate using the term rip off, but that's basically what they did. Was they're like, we're just going to call him Orlok instead of Dracula, and
yeah.
Bram Stoker's widow, from what I read, was very vicious too. Like she wanted every physical print destroyed. She wanted to sue the theaters that still had I don't know, would you call them bootlegs or existing prints or whatever?
Yeah. But fortunately, there were a few copies that
thank God
were able to watch it.
Like those movies. Like I know it sounds silly, but if you put some heavy metal music on, instead of because usually it has like the violins and stuff, it makes it a different experience, man. I'm telling you.
Well, and what they did that with Metropolis, where what was it during the 80s or whatever, they put out again with a rock soundtrack. And what was it, George Moroder or whatever his name is, put it out, the re-release Metropolis, but with modern rock artists, providing music.
Oh, I'm gonna have to check that out. I didn't know that existed.
You can find a copy somewhere, yeah, but it's really good, and it gives it a different feel with rock music under the.
It does. I put on what was it? It was Hacks and Witchcraft Through the Ages, and I put on a Black Sabbath album, and it fit perfectly. Like the demons are over there with their little stir pot, and it was like,
what was it? What was it? Wizard of Oz that they would put Dark Side of the Moon under it. Was that it? It was a Pink Floyd Pink Floyd album they would put under.
I didn't know about that, so I don't know. But I'm sure it would fit if you put Pink Floyd on, because Wizard of Oz is a trip too.
Yeah. And let's see. Akers says hello. Thanks, Stacy. Who would you cast as Dr. Frankenstein in The Creature? Like I said, a modern Frankenstein.
Ooh, I know mine.
I mentioned Willem Dafoe and Shadow of the Vampire.
He was on my list too. I was thinking William Dafoe as the. I was thinking either William Dafoe or Robert Englund if he would do it. I know he's pretty old, and then the monster, I'd probably go with the dude who played Art the Clown, or just some either just a weird someone who's a good actor. Or just find some big bastard. Get a pro wrestler or something and put some makeup on him.
Well, who's the actor again that played Nosferatu? He also played
he would be a good one. Bill. Is it Bill Skarsgård?
Skarsgård, yeah.
Oh, that was a really good. If you wouldn't have told me that was Bill Skarsgård, I wouldn't have known.
Yeah.
They did such good with the makeup.
Yeah. And they give him a mustache.
Yeah, I think that was supposed to be like Vlad the Impaler because that's who Dracula is supposed to be or something. I was always told. So maybe that's why they gave him the big old stash.
Yeah.
When I saw it, I was like, damn.
Yeah, very anxious to see that. Yeah.
When I saw him, I was like, damn, did they resurrect the corpse of John Holmes or something? Look at the mustache on him.
Um, but yeah, well, that's unfortunate. But when it's streaming and it's cheap, I'll
Oh,
either
yeah.
wait for it to stream Wolfman.
Yeah,
I hate to hear that, but I
I thought
enjoyed
about watching that. I thought about watching that Wicked, but I'm not paying no $30. Fuck that.
Yeah, I finally watched Barbie because back in the whole Barbenheimer business and when Oppenheimer had come out, so I thought, well, I have no interest in watching Barbie, but they put it on the Disney Channel. So I got it. Well, what the hell? I wouldn't. It was okay. I didn't think it was terrible. It's definitely. I'm not the audience for it. But I like a cat. I like it being part of the show. Um, but yeah. Well, then Wolfman. Yeah. But in Nosferatu, it's been remade a few times. Was it Werner Herzog made it? He did a good job, I thought. I liked his.
That's a cursed film for me. I can't watch it. Every time I watch it, something bad happens. One time I watched it and I caught the flu, and the last time I watched it, I broke a tooth on a piece of popcorn. So I avoid that film like the plague.
But the Werner Herzog?
Oh, it's good. It's a great movie. I just can't watch it because something bad will happen.
Yeah, it's cursed.
For me, it is. I don't know about anybody else. Maybe I put that evil on someone watching out there. I don't know.
But yeah, and of course, definitely with the director and all that, definitely anxious to see Nosferatu, the new one. But yeah, that there's still movies made by Universal that are still sort of under the headline of Universal monster films. Abigail. I've seen it twice so far. I've really enjoyed Abigail.
Oh, I did too. That was a movie I thought that was just going to be a time waster. Just kind of put it on to after work, kill some time. But I was actually invested and I enjoyed it. I was surprised.
Yeah, it went in directions that I didn't expect. Because there was people that was upset that the trailer sort of gave away the fact that Abigail was a vampire. But I don't think that should have been really that big of a secret anyway. It's just like the premise of the movie is that Abigail is a vampire. Some people were upset by that should have been something that's revealed.
I don't think you would have been able to keep that a secret nowadays anyways, because after opening day, someone would be like, I was at Fantastic Fest and she's a vampire. Then everyone would know anyhow. Yeah.
But I liked it, and like most Universal films or Universal monster films, it has a sense of humor. I like its sense of humor, but I also like it's when Abigail is going apeshit on people. It's very creatively done, and kind of I really like I guess what you would call, I forget the actress's name, but the final girl, I guess you would call in Abigail. I really like her, and I like the sort of relationship she develops with Abigail late in the film.
Yeah, they become almost like friends or something.
Yeah, well, sort of frenemies, I guess you'd say.
Frenemies, yeah.
For banding together for a greater good, because there's there's a character that pops up that's an even bigger threat than
Abigail.
But yeah, really enjoyed Abigail. Renfield, you put Nick Cage in anything, I'm going to watch it. So
I was the only person in the theater for that, and that really disappointed me because I was like, man, this is such a good film. I was entertained by it, and it's just like nobody showed up.
Well, I mean, when I started, Nick Cage's Dracula, man, I'm there. I'm just the very idea of that, But yeah, it's
Oh,
really
it was a funny movie. And normally I'm kind of a hard person to make laugh at modern comedies, but that was one that really had me like laughing in there. I was like Robert De Niro and Cape Fear or something. I was like really into it. But
yeah,
like I said, nobody showed up, kind of like with Long Legs. It was me and I think like three other people. Just
yeah.
poor
Well,
Nicolas
like I say,
Cage.
with me, I've got to wait for things to stream. Now,
Yeah.
fortunately, I had some folks that took me to see Terrifier 3. So I had a drive-in,
Oh,
and
that's the best place to see it.
yeah. And so it was the first time I've been in a drive-in in well over 20 years. And first time I think the last time I was in a theater, actually was able to go to a theater and see a movie. God, what was it? Uh, phew, uh, I can't remember, but it'd been about 2 years, 2 or 3 years since I've been actually in a theater to see a movie. Because I don't drive, I'm on disability, I don't drive a car, and I just don't know folks that go to movies, and not able to go. Um, so I pretty much have to wait for things to stream. So I
Yeah.
had to wait for things like Renfield and Abigail and Alien Romulus and Long Legs. Had to wait sort of later in the game to finally see them. And But yeah, the Renfield is a lot of fun, and yeah, if you're I've been a Nick Cage fan for 30 something years, because one of my favorite movies ever. My favorite comedy is Raising Arizona, and with Nick Cage and Holly Hunter, and John Goodman and William Forsythe, and when I got to interview William Forsythe for the Dead Pit channel, it was just so cool. I was able to talk to him about Raising Arizona and such, um, but uh, but yeah, anything with Nick Cage, because I know he made a lot of bad movies. Nick Cage makes either really good movies or really bad movies. He, he,
There's
uh,
there's no in between, but the thing is,
there's hardly
but
there's hardly any in between.
if they're bad, they're at least entertaining. Like that, his version of the Wicker Man is probably one of the worst things ever made, but you could laugh at it.
The bees, not the
The
bees.
bees, yeah, the bees that are like not in his eyes, and he's like, "Here in my eyes." Yeah,
Yeah, um, and if you want to see Nick Cage go batshit crazy, Vampire's Kiss. Uh,
I ain't
you
seen that. I
got
have
to
to
see
check that one out.
you got to see Vampire's Kiss because he just goes ape shit, and it's crazy. Nick Cage is just as entertaining as good Nick Cage, and
Is
yeah,
is that the one where he's screaming the ABCs or
yeah,
whatever?
yeah. Well,
Okay,
you got to see Vampire's Kiss. Look that up and see that because it's a lot of fun, and it's one where he just goes hog wild. And but yeah, um, but yeah, and speaking of the Universal horror films or Universal monster films, of course, it goes way back. The Hunchback of Notre Dame, Phantom of the Opera, Invisible Man, Wolfman, Frankenstein, and let's speak for a bit about James Whale. Because something that you had brought up to me in chatting with you on Instagram is he was a gay man, James Whale.
openly gay for the
Yeah.
30s, which I could only imagine.
And when you look at particularly Bride of Frankenstein, I love the movie. One of my favorite, all-time favorite, horror films, one of my all-time favorite Universal films, horror films. But it's as queer as can be, Bride of Frankenstein, Dr. Pretorius, uh, it's, and you definitely can tell now you're watching it that this was made by, a gay man. And if you watch Freaks, it's almost, you can see a correlation between how he must have dealt with being a gay man during the 30s and the way he was perceived and the way he was treated. If you look at Freaks, you almost see that story sort of visualized in Freaks, where the freaks are treated compassionately in the film. They're treated as not normal people, but they're treated as human beings, and the way that they're mistreated in the movie in Freaks. I can kind of see sort of a correlation between how he must have the things he must have dealt with as a gay man during that time. That I wonder if that's what drew him to that story of Freaks. That you can kind of see a correlation between that, the way that the freaks are treated and the way, gay people must have been treated during that time period. Yeah. Speak. What do you know about him, about James Whale?
Well, if I read things, but there's also that films I don't know if you see. God dang sassafras! There's that film, Gods and Monsters. Yeah. It was about James Whale's life, and I always wondered how much of that was true and how much was fiction. Because it's if you've ever seen that, it's a crazy movie. But he was an openly gay man in the 1930s, which is okay. Kat, you got to get down.
I like sassafras.
Which I could only imagine how hard that would be. But he also was in one of the wars too, whichever war was around at that time. So he dealt with a lot of PTSD as well. So I wonder how much of that had to do with why he wanted to, make a film like Frankenstein or Dracula. But even, Bride of Frankenstein, which is probably one of the gayest movies of all time, with the mad scientist. What's his name? Pretorius?
Pretorius, yeah.
Yeah, he's just, you could people try to tap dance. I heard people tap dance. No, that's a gay character. It just is. Just the way how he's like real, kind of flamboyant and
he's
stuff.
Very flamboyant, and he's got his little miniature, menagerie.
Yeah, but it wasn't just James Whale. I mean, if you watch Dracula's Daughter, she's a lesbian. I mean, clearly, she's seducing the.
It wasn't until after he passed away, but Vincent Price's daughter, because she was a lesbian, and Vincent Price had spoken out during that time in support of her and gay rights or lesbian rights or whatever, and really had supported her, during that time period when she came out as gay, Vincent Price's daughter. But after he passed away, she had written about her relationship with her father and how supportive he was of her and all of that. And pretty much had said, well, he was bisexual, Vincent Price. Of course, he had married, had several times, had kids, but he also had relationship with men that during the time period, in speaking with her, he said that he wasn't, having any kind of sexual relationship with them. But after he had passed away, he said, well, likely he was doing that, and was, a bisexual man, Vincent Price.
A lot of actors like that were back then. I read articles about John Wayne's boys club, as it was, to where basically they would kind of go off, and I don't want to get sued or anything, but there's stuff is out there about John Wayne and all those guys, kind of where the women weren't there, Yeah. But the Universal monsters, I remember even reading stuff about the actress that played the Bride of Frankenstein too. There's all kinds of stuff out there how they would have to code things because there was the Hays Code, so they would type up a screenplay and it had to get approved. So they kind of coded things in a certain way.
Yeah. Yeah.
But if like with James Whale, it's kind of like I had a friend that was complaining, everything's woke. Why is everything queer? Like, I want to just watch this horror movie. Why is all the, because, apparently the Babadook's a gay movie or something. And he was all upset about it. And it's like, well, horror movies have always been queer. I mean, since the 30s with the James Whale stuff. Even like the Old Dark House, there's that same actor who played Pretorius. He's playing like another gay guy in that film.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's real kind of sassy, and he tells people, "Have a potato," and it's just like, I'm not trying to sound offensive, but that's how he talked. He's like a real kind of flamboyant guy, and you could tap dance around it, but that's a gay character.
Well, and that's something that with me, I don't care, as long as it's a good movie, you know.
Yeah, me too. It don't bother me at all.
One of my favorite movies is a Rocky Horror Picture Show. I love Rocky Horror Picture Show. I know the music from end to end. I know every song. I know every beat of that film. I love that film. And first saw it in Denton, Texas, which that's the town in Rocky Horror Picture Show is Denton. But the theater there would show Rocky Horror Picture Show at midnight on Saturday nights pretty much all the time. They had one screen, at a 4-screen theater, and had one screen reserved for Rocky Horror Picture Show on Saturday nights, midnight. Love that movie. Like I say, these days, what's sad about just movies in general, with some exceptions, it's like they don't take risks. They're too worried about offending somebody. And my opinion of that is, well, what's the worst that's going to happen if you offend somebody? They're still going to live to see another day if they're offended. Big deal.
Yeah.
Tell your story. Tell it the way you want to tell it, whether it's with a gay character or whatever. Just tell your story and tell it the way you want to tell it. When you look back at films like The Exorcist and films like that, or comedies like Blazing Saddles, that you say, well, they would never make a movie like that anymore.
Well, even it's just like with that Exorcist, what was it, Believer? That was one of those movies to where they played it so safe to where it's almost like this isn't interesting. It's better to piss somebody off, and at least you can have a discourse. Even if they're offended by it, okay, well, what's your grievance? We can have a conversation. But that movie was just kind of like, I don't know, generic,
It was generic, and also it was almost like whatever. Everyone behind that film were just shoving things on the screen that they think, well, this is what we want to see. This is this generic sort of version of, exorcism and possession or whatever.
I call them checklist movies. Scary little kids, check.
Yeah.
They go spooky woods, check. Generic monster face, check.
Exactly. Yeah.
And another thing is, they had such a golden opportunity, even if they did have the same story, have the different religious people fight. They can't all be right. I'm sorry. Catholicism was the one that worked in the first one, right? So why didn't you have the priest arguing with, what was it, a Jehovah Witness or whatever, with the Baptist? It was almost like the Avengers,
Yeah.
Okay, we're going to throw Muhammad in there. Okay, that didn't work.
Every religion that exists, they threw.
That's what I'm saying. But wouldn't they fight? Like if someone was really possessed, wouldn't God, I don't want to sound too pissy, the witch doctor people or whatever they were, wouldn't they be like, hey, wow, they're here, they're making it worse? Wouldn't they be arguing? Hell, I know Catholics and Protestants that fight over the Bible and they have the same book,
Yeah. Yeah.
But you would probably make somebody mad. Oh, they put they said Catholicism is the right one or whatever,
And and then oh gosh, the whole moment with the mother, the original mother.
Yeah, she's all like, it was sad because she could barely move.
Well, she's in her 90s. And basically she did the movie because they donated to some sort of charity that she runs. She didn't want to make that movie. She didn't want to be in that movie. She didn't like the script. She thought it was stupid, but she did it for the money. Which, okay. But there's that moment where she talks about where she wasn't allowed in the room with Reagan in the original when she was being exercised. she didn't want to be in that room. She put her trust in these
And the
priests
priest, yeah.
and
She said
saved her
something.
daughter. But she said, "Oh, it's the hierarchy or whatever."
No, she was like, they wouldn't let me in because I wasn't a part of their damn patriarchy. I don't think she wanted to be in there.
Yeah, what part of the patriarchy? Oh, that I hated that. I thought that was. She should have said, "I'm not going to say that." She should have said, "I'm not saying those words."
Well, another thing that made no sense is that scene. The dad. Okay, number one, the dad finds her too damn quick. He's just like, "Oh, if I got this book, I'm going to look her up. I know where she lives now." Okay, that was kind of silly. And then she's like, I don't. He's like, "You think she was possessed?" And she's like, "I wasn't in the room." It's like, didn't your daughter slap you across the face and spin her head around and all kinds of crazy stuff? Yeah, I mean, like, didn't you see all that? Like, what do you mean you didn't know if she was possessed? That made no sense. Yeah. And if you watch the director's cut, she does a spider walk down the stairs.
Well, yeah, I mean, she goes to Father Merrin and says, "Would you perform this exorcism for my daughter? My daughter is possessed." She knows her daughter is that. That's why they're there, because she went to him and told, went to the priest and said, "My daughter is possessed." So yeah.
It's just, yeah.
But fortunately, there are some that are telling good stories and or sort of pushing the edge, like the Terrifier films. Whether you like those films or not, I do like them.
I love them.
And the gore in those films it's almost stylized gore. It's almost
like a Looney Tunes or what was that that Bart Simpson used to watch where the cat and the mouse would chop each other up? You know what I'm talking about?
Itchy and Scratchy.
Yeah, it's almost like Itchy and Scratchy.
Yeah, it's so over the top that to me it's almost funny. It is
funny.
Laughing.
I got a lot of crazy looks in the theater, but when the kid opens up the box in the third one and
it blows up.
Yeah, it just made me laugh. I'm sorry, it did.
There was another guy I watched that reviews movies, and he called Terrifier 3 the fuck kids movie.
Because, he killed. They did it in a tasteful way to where you don't see it. But,
see it. Yeah, and that was what before it was released. He says, "Well, there's going to be parts of this movie that are going to shock people, are going to upset some people," and I right away, I knew what it was going to be, because the trailer, you've got the little girl that comes down, she sees Santa Claus, and then it cuts and you've got Art, sitting in the chair and he's eating cookies and he's covered in blood, and you got the bloody axe behind him. He's just slaughtered this little girl, and so I knew he was going to be killing kids in Terrifier 3, but I was hoping, how far is he going to go? Because when you look at Terrifier 2, particularly that infamous bedroom scene, where it really pushes the edge, as far as, showing.
The bedroom scene, I think, saved itself, because I've seen that in the theater too, and people were really kind of like, but then when he came back with the bleach and assault, the audience laughed.
It gives it a comic, flavor.
Yeah, because if they wouldn't have had that, people would have been like, "Oh God, that was too much." But he comes back and he's all like,
"Pumping it on her, bleach and the salt."
And then doesn't he put mashed potatoes in the mom's face or something after he blew her head off?
And that's the thing with those films is it goes to extremes, but then David Howard Thornton is so great as Art. And you see interviews with him. He said he studied mime and such. He really studied, because of course Art doesn't talk, so it's all facial expressions. It's all the way he portrays Art with his face, and he's just wonderful at that. That one moment he's funny, he's hilarious, and the next moment he's like, holy
scary.
Shit. He's scary. He's creepy.
Well, if you ever seen the original actor who played Art the Clown, no offense to that guy, he just wasn't as good. It was almost like a generic clown. But with the guy in Terrifier 2 or Terrifier 1, Terrifier 2, he's so good at it. It's almost like night and day.
Yeah.
So instead of being like a
Aaron Thornton's his name. And
yeah,
also what helped a lot was they 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 did prosthetics. They built up his nose. They made him more almost like
a monster.
a monster. Yeah. Uh, because the original actor that played Art, it's just makeup on his face, you know. But
Yeah,
when they redesigned Art, when they gave him with the nose, with the pointed nose, the long nose, and built his cheeks up and made him more of a sort of a supernatural being, because we still don't know exactly what Art is, but we know he's not human, you know, because he's literally reborn from, you
yeah,
know, in at the end of Terrifier 2. Um, so we know he's not a real person. He's from hell. He's a demon of some kind or something.
yeah. I hope that's how they leave it too. I don't know. It's almost like with Michael Myers when they explain too much, it kind of makes him less interesting. Just give me a little bit. He's a clown demon from hell. That's all I need.
Yeah, yeah, and exactly. I don't want to over explain Art. I hope that with, of course, the Terrifier 3 became the most successful unrated film ever. Uh, you know, it was the number one film in the country for like a week. And, so everybody was going to see Terrifier 3. It wasn't just the horror movie fans or, that it became really popular. And so, of course, they're making Terrifier 4. And I'm hoping they don't give this concrete answer exactly of what Art is, that they leave it sort of ambiguous, exactly what he is.
I wonder if they're gonna. I wonder, are they gonna? Are they kind of putting themselves in a corner because you got to top yourself every time? So it's kind of like, well, 2 was more extreme than 1, so 3 has to be extreme. So I wonder if it's going to be like Saw, where you just kind of run out of ways to kill people.
What I'm thinking? I certainly could be wrong, but Terrifier 2 was more I don't know if you'd say serious, but it was more, uh, I guess, frightening than 3. 3, once you put Art in a Santa Claus costume, then you're going more of the comedic route. You still got the great gore effects. He still goes batshit on people and, chops people up. And, they got him peeling the guy's skin off his face, which I love that shot. It fills his skin off his face. You got great gore, but it's also got more of a comic flavor, part 3 than part 2. And I'm going to bet that part 4 is going to go more the Terrifier 1 route, that be more serious, more more of a horror film than Terrifier 3. Because I find Terrifier 3 to be more almost a black comedy.
Oh, it most definitely is. It's kind of like how Freddy became funny. That's kind of what they did with him. He was almost like telling, well, he doesn't talk, but it was like little comedy skits.
Yeah.
You're like with him at the bar with that guy who's playing Santa Claus and Clint Howard's there. And
then you have a Tom Savini cameo, and in part 3. So it's like they were going more, I don't know, not more lighthearted. It isn't a lighthearted film, but more comedic, a little more, having more fun with the character of Art. And I'm going to guess that part 4 is going to go back to get more of a horror film, more intense, more like 1 and 2.
Yeah, it's definitely. I would say I would use the term mean spirited, because the first film I feel like is more mean spirited than the third one, if that makes sense.
Yeah,
there's almost like a meanness to it.
Well, the first film is really almost more of a proof of concept for the character of Art the Clown.
Yeah.
Because there's very little story to it. It's just Art killing women, basically, and torturing women. And there's almost no story to part 1. part 2 has much of a story, but once you give him someone to fight against him, and who's the actress's name, but I love her in that, to someone that actually can, do battle with art, but the first film is just art killing, and of course the hacksaw scene and the first one, you talk about the scenes that or the big scenes in the films, where you get the hacksaw scene in the first film, the bedroom scene in the second film, and I don't know, the third film, the shower scene, I guess.
Yeah, I guess. It's one that I really love the second and third one. I'm not too big of a fan of the first one because it's kind of basic, but I actually really enjoyed. I like the second one the best, I think, because it does have more story to
I
it.
think I enjoyed the second one the best. It's got more story to it, particularly with the girl, the little what was it, the pale girl that's
Yeah,
into the third film, where you get the girl with the skin face from the first film, and the second one, film 2, where she's kind of Art's partner in the third film.
I think she. I think she might be scarier than Art in the third one, though. She almost kind of outstages him a little bit.
And really good actress, good performance too, because she's
Yeah,
that heavy makeup. So to perform, to give a really good performance under that heavy makeup was really good. Yeah, but yeah, she's fucked up. she's in the
the
bathtub and she's slitting her wrists, and
Well, not only that, but I don't know if we can even talk about it on here. But when she's watching Art kill that guy, what she does with a shard of glass, even
yeah,
for me, I was like, okay, that's a bit much, even for someone like me.
yeah,
Damn.
yeah. Um, but yeah. So like movies like that, like Terrifier 3. I recently saw Strange Darling, which I thought was really good. That there's still filmmakers out there that are sort of pushing the edge and trying to give us something with some meat on the bones, and also a good story. And you mentioned Log Legs. Once again, anything with Nick Cage, but he's used sparingly in Long Legs. They don't use him a lot in the film, and
Which is a good thing,
that's a
I
good thing.
think.
Yeah, that's a good thing, because when you see him, you get full on Nick Cage. You get Nick Cage being primo Nick Cage, and that can, a little goes a long way when he's really, going full on, with his performance. And so they use him just enough, I think, in Long Legs to make him effective, and not go overboard, and Abigail. No. What's the cat's name again? What's it?
Sassafras.
Sassafras. Yeah, I like
But I
Sassafras.
always caught when I take her to the vet, I always joke she looks like Groucho. She has a
Yeah.
mustache.
No, I love Sassafras. But let me catch up here on some comments that Akers has made. Should Eggers make a new set of Nightmare on Elm Street films? Eggers. So that's the one that made Nosferatu.
I love Freddy. Like, there's certain characters that I really enjoy that I can watch, all day, and Freddy's one of them. But you'd have to make another one. You'd have to go dark, and I think they just don't want to offend nobody now. Because if you look at Freddy's backstory, he wasn't just a serial killer; he was a predator. So it depends on how far they could really, go with that. And not to keep putting over William Dafoe, but that's who I'd want to be the new Freddy as well, just because that guy's scary outside of makeup.
Yeah.
If someone told me William Dafoe's pissed and he's looking for you, I'd shit my pants. I'd be like, damn.
Yeah. Well, also, and just to, and this is something I used to call him that too, but I found out the last 10 years, his name is Willem.
Oh, William.
It's
Okay.
Willem. Willem.
Willem. Okay.
That's an odd name, Willem, but that's his name, Willem. I always used to say William Dafoe, but his name is Willem. Uh, uh, but yeah, what Robert Eggers, just to see him behind the camera doing a Freddy film, because everything he's done, because The Witch,
Just the
great.
visuals alone would be amazing.
With The Witch, and I really like The Lighthouse. I've met people that just hate The Lighthouse. I
That
love
movie's amazing.
because once again, Willem Dafoe. And it's basically, him being this guy that runs this lighthouse, and his acting in the lighthouse is just fantastic, and he's just going, yeah.
That famous scene with the lobster, and he puts the curse on him.
Yeah. If you want to see a great Willem Dafoe performance, watch The Lighthouse. I've seen some people that said I cannot stand that movie. I love it.
That movie's I love it. I remember I had movie night with my mom one time, and she hated it, but I was like, that movie was awesome.
Yeah. And I still haven't seen The Northman though, and I've got to see that.
It's a good one, but it's a bit long in the tooth. So when you watch it, it's good, but then there's like a stretch that's just like, okay, we need to pick up the pace,
Yeah.
And then when you get to the third act, it's amazing.
I got to see that. In fact, let me write that down. See if that's streaming somewhere. Because that's something, if I don't write it down, I'm going to forget about it. Okay. All right, now let's do some more catching up here. What is the best slasher villain performance in a movie?
Ooh, that's a tough one.
The best slasher villain performance. I almost want to go Robert Englund in Nightmare on Elm Street 3.
Yeah. Man, it's not a, well, he said slasher villain. I don't think you would consider Norman Bates in Psycho to be one, would you? That's not really a slasher film, but that's the first one that popped. That's the first one that popped in my mind because he actually scared me.
That's something Noah brought up, is that actually he considers Psycho sort of be the first slasher movie, like to be, or one of the first, sort of the first to that concept of a slasher,
yeah, because that was one of those movies. That was one of those movies to where my parents showed it to me, but I didn't know the ending because, of course, when you're a little kid, you don't know that he's the killer, and that just kind of freaked me out,
And also, I brought this up with Noah. That is one of the few times, well, you always really like the killer. You like Freddy. You like Art the Clown. You like Leatherface. But I feel sorry for Norman Bates at the very end. There's never a moment where I don't like Norman Bates. And I feel
you're almost rooting for him when he's cleaning it up. You're like, hurry up. And another thing, we talked about queerness. He was a gay man as well, too.
Yeah.
Anthony Perkins.
Yeah.
Yes.
But just the character of Norman, you love him to the end. Even when you find him batshit crazy, you still love him.
Free my homie Norman Bates. He didn't do shit.
Love Norman, and that's one of the characters where I love to watch Freddy and love to watch Leatherface and all that, but you don't find them really sympathetic characters.
No, but Norman's complex, but he also seems more real than Leatherface or Jason. It's almost like, to me, that's what scared me, because it's like, oh, that person's not all there, that, especially even in like a Psycho 2, where you actually see him with the voice and he's like, no, man. And he's like talking to himself, and it's just like, oh, God.
Well, it
freaks me out.
I don't know if you consider Psycho 2 to be a slasher, because it kind of treats Norman as more of a victim, almost in a way.
Yeah, he's the protagonist, I would say, and then they're messing with him, you know.
But one of the best performances by Anthony Perkins might be his best performance is Psycho 2.
Oh yeah, definitely that scene with dang, I forgot. Is it Meg Tilly? Who's in the lady who's living with him? Anyways, there's this real emotional scene where they're at the table, and it's like, wow, he's a very very talented actor. It's a good scene. Like you have sympathy for him, like you said, you know.
Yeah.
And it's like I'm tired of this. I'm tired of this old heifer messing with Norman and trying to mess up his probation or whatever he was out on.
And what is the very last scene, or very close to the very last scene?
The shovel, the dunk.
You want some more tea, mother? Is that his line or something like that? And he picks up
dunk.
And bang. And I've watched that scene over and over and just rerunning and watching it. It looks every time it looks like he just really conks that.
No, it looked like he does.
It looks like he just he really conked that actress in the head. It looks so real. But no, I love Psycho 2. I love
the third one as well. And there's great, there's scares and then there's suspense. You know, the sheriff is going in the ice machine in Psycho 3, and there's a little blood ice, and Norman grabs it real quick and puts it in his mouth.
And he directed it too, Psycho 3.
Yeah.
Anthony Perkins. And don't Psycho 4 kind of go back when he's like at a talk show or something and sort of telling?
Yeah, he calls into a talk show and kind of confesses all, and it's almost like a prequel, which that might be one of my favorite sequels too. I like 4 better than 3. And that kind of goes back to the old, I think, isn't Psycho a Universal? Isn't that like a Universal horror film too?
Now, what was that you asked me again?
Isn't Psycho considered Universal horror? I know it was filmed at Paramount, but they sold it to Universal or something.
That's a good question. Yeah, it may be. But then I've got a list here I'm going to pull up here, but I want to catch up. Film market funding sources say the movie is actually more of a sci-fi and robotic movie for the 4th one regarding Terrifier 4. And she always asks good questions. Akers is very creative with her questions. Would Michael Douglas as the new Dr. Frankenstein and Stallone as Frankenstein creature be a good one? Good new Frankenstein.
I would definitely watch it. It would be interesting.
I would see that.
Hey, yo, I need some lightning.
Yeah. But yeah. But let's see here, because I'm trying to go back to the more recent movie. This one, the what they still consider Universal horror, but the more recent ones. In 2014, there's a movie called Dracula Untold, but I haven't.
Oh, that's a good one. I liked it.
Oh,
yeah.
Then in 2017, I don't know if they call it a remake or an update of The Mummy. With Alex Kurtzman did that. Then was it? The Invisible Man, Renfield, The Last Voyage of the Demeter.
Oh, amazing! I love that movie. That movie is awesome. It's if you ever read Bram Stoker's Dracula, it's basically that chapter from the book to where Dracula's on the boat and they're sailing, and it's basically him picking off the people on the ship.
Huh.
And he kind of looks like Nosferatu a little. He's like a monster. He's not really like a human. So it's almost it's definitely a creature feature, and he picks them off, man. It's good.
I've got to see that.
And it's just a shame we will never get a sequel because it didn't do well, unfortunately.
Well, hang on. That's the last one. That one I got to write down.
Oh, yeah, that's one you definitely got to see.
Okay.
Yeah, you'll love that one. I'm telling you.
That's right. I've heard of that, but I didn't know that was the story. I didn't know
That'd be a good one for if you have the time to double
because I
feature with
forgot that
Nosferatu.
was the name of the boat, Demeter. Yeah.
Yeah, that'd be a good double feature with Nosferatu there. That's a good one too.
Yeah. But I tell you, if you're a fan of Nosferatu, go look up Shadow of the Vampire.
Yeah. That's on my list. I haven't seen that, but that's on my
Yeah, well,
list.
you've got to see that. And it's streaming. I paid like, I don't know, $3 or $4 for it on.
Okay, well I can do $3 or $4, but would you get to like the 1996 for a
Well, that's
one-time
what it is.
viewing?
Right now they want like $20 for Nosferatu on the Amazon channel. So I'm
Yeah,
waiting
I can't. Yeah.
$5 or $6. Psycho 2 book takes place mainly at movie studio. Bates killing them would that be good? Good for a new Psycho movie. Maybe Paul Dano as Norman Bates. Kieran Culkin. Actually, don't mess with Psycho. Of course that remake they made of Psycho, or where they just basically.
Dude, you're talking about the Vince Vaughn one?
Yeah, Vince Vaughn, and it just beat for beat remake.
No, that was a waste of time. I remember there was a flea market in Waco, and I bought some tapes, and that was one of the tapes I bought, and I was flabbergasted. I'm like, what's the point of that? It was literally, okay, we're going to do the camera angles the same. And was it supposed to be in the 90s or the 60s? Because they're talking like it's the 60s, and people are dressed. Some people are dressed like the 60s. Some are dressed like the 90s. I don't know.
Yeah. It's in color. That's the only but yeah, it was completely pointless. Because I mean, if you're going to remake anything, try to do something different with it. Try to update it and do something different. That movie
I was talking with an old lady at my job because she liked the Thing from Another World, and she didn't like John Carpenter's The Thing, but it's like she's like, well, at least it was different.
That's my favorite horror film. Is John Carpenter's The Thing.
That's a great one.
I spoke that with Noah. When we're going down this list, it was a Rotten Tomatoes list of the top horror films. We got to The Thing. John Carpenter's The Thing. I said, well, that's it. That's my favorite. That's my number one horror film is John Carpenter's The Thing. That movie it's a perfect film for me. It captures paranoia perfectly.
Claustrophobia, is that a right word? Because when I watch it, I feel like kind of like a tightness. You're like, there's nowhere where are you going to run? You can't go run to the cops because you're in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah, and out in the middle of this frozen landscape where it's like 100 degrees below zero, and so they can't escape.
Who can you trust? Can you trust her buddy? You can't even trust the dog. And dog is supposed to be man's best friend.
And that's something that Joe Garcia brought up on my birthday show. He said, that is one of the most fantastic performances by a dog in a movie is in The Thing. Because that dog is stopping and looking and then going and running, when it's being chased by the helicopter. It's like a great performance by that dog. And when it's going down a hallway and it's slowly and it's looking in this room, and then it's pausing and then it walks into that room, and that dog's performance is just amazing. The way that it pauses and looks and of course I know it was a trainer that had trained the dog to do that.
When I was a little kid, that scene in the kennel gave me nightmares. You know what I'm talking about, where they go in there and the dog's all
yeah. Oh yeah. And of course Rob Bottin's effects.
That gave me that messed me up for a while there. I was even Old Blue. I was kind of leery of him.
Yeah. But yeah, that's my favorite horror film is The Thing. But yeah, let's see, Abigail, Nosferatu, and Wolfman. So we'll I guess avoid Wolfman, which is sad because, like I say, the director is so good. but yeah, and looking at the early Universal monster films, there was two versions of Dracula. There's one, of course, that Todd Browning directed,
And then there was the Spanish one.
what they took the same sets, I guess. Well, I don't know. It was filmed after the original Dracula, or like when they weren't filming.
Yeah, they would switch. So if the Lugosi and they need to do daytime scenes, the Spanish crew would do night, and then when they would switch.
Yeah,
and it's a good film. I prefer Bela Lugosi, but the Spanish one is a better made movie, like from a technical standpoint and just how it's made. You just have to read subtitles, but I think it's worth it.
Yeah, George Melford directed the Spanish version. Yeah, and of course the Frankenstein in 1931, James Whale, The Mummy in 1932, Visible Man in 1933. And then Bride of Frankenstein, and didn't James Whale also direct the Invisible Man, the original?
Yeah, he did Invisible Man, which with Claude Rains, which is, if you ever watch the Lon Chaney Wolf Band, he's supposed to be Lon Chaney's dad, but Lon Chaney looks older than he does.
But yeah, Bride of Frankenstein. 1935, Werewolf of London.
I love that one. That's a good one.
I think you might have mentioned Dracula's Daughter, 1936.
Yep.
1939's Son of Frankenstein.
That one's okay.
1940, Visible Man Returns.
Oh, that's the Vincent Price one. That's the good. I like that one better than the first one.
Anything with Vincent Price. In 1940s, The Mummy's Hand, which I don't know.
That's the one where I think Lon Chaney Jr. became the mummy. It's almost like it's really weird you're talking about Psycho being the first slasher film. When I think about it, those old mummy movies with Lon Chaney are kind of like slasher movies. He strangles them, but he picks them off one by one. He doesn't really talk or anything. He just kind of gets them.
Yeah. In 1940, The Invisible Woman.
I haven't seen that one.
1941, Wolfman. 1942's Ghost of Frankenstein. Also in 1942, The Invisible Agent. 1942, The Mummy's Tomb. And here's where they started to have fun. And I think, not that the original films didn't have any bits of humor to them, but I think, in like the mid 40s, they started to have a little more fun with the characters.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you'd call them campy, but,
they became almost safe, if that's a word, like Abbott and Costello. They became almost like family. Well, I mean, they're all family friendly, but you know what I mean. They became less scary and more like Count Chocula or something.
Well, also, I guess, they were appealing to kids too, because kids were going to go to the movies. Kids were going to see the monster films. That they were appealing. And the reason why I brought that up is in 1943, you get Frankenstein Meets the Wolfman.
That's a good one. I like that one.
And it's a good film, but it's having more fun with the characters.
It's really cool, man. It seeing them kind of like face off was cool too. Fight was short, but
And also that was kind of the introduction of taking classic monster and pitting them against each other. I don't know if that was the first movie to do that, but that sort of concept of, because now you got Freddy versus Jason and that kind of thing. The Predator, Alien Predator films. That pitting two popular monsters against each other.
Yeah, and it's making them fight. It's awesome.
Yeah,
I wish they would do more of that, but you don't see it.
yeah. But Frankenstein meets the Wolfman. In 1943, Phantom of the Opera, and this is the of course, is the remake of this. This was Arthur Lubin directed, and
I think that's the Claude Rains one too, where he's the Phantom.
Yeah.
It's funny because he smacks that woman across the face. I'm not laughing at male on woman violence, but it's almost like when Clint Eastwood punches that lady and play Misty for me, and she flies.
Yeah.
He just.
Let's see. 1943, Son of Dracula.
That's a cheesy one. If you want one that's just kind of fun, that's Lon Chaney as as Dracula, and he has a mustache, and it's just hilarious.
Huh.
And he's not, I love Lon Chaney, but it's not the best performance either. He's like, I'm from Transylvania in my thick American accent.
Well, cool. There's a lot of things I need to look up and revisit because it's been.
And the great thing is, and like I try to tell some of the people my age to watch them, they're short and sweet. They're about an hour.
Yeah. And they're good. I don't know if you want to call them time wasters, but they're good. Just if you want to, ease up with some popcorn and just watch something fun.
Yeah, they're like B movies. To me, they're like comfort food. It's not a steak; it's a nasty deal of mac and cheese or something.
Yeah, popcorn.
Yeah,
popcorn films. But let's see. 1944, The Invisible Man's Revenge. I don't know if I've seen that.
I don't think I've seen that one either.
Also in 44, The Mummy's Ghost.
Yeah, that's another Lon Chaney Jr. one. Those get blurred in my head because they're kind of generic, though. Like, they're in a good way. Like those Lon Chaney mummy movies. Like, if you watch them, like you said, popcorn movies, but if you ask me to give a synopsis, they all bleed together.
Yeah.
Because it's basically they find the mummy and they mess with the little area, which are not supposed to, and it's kind of like formulaic.
Let's see. Also in 44, House of Frankenstein.
Yeah, it's all right.
Mummy's Curse in 44. House of Dracula, 45. And do we still have Bela Lugosi as Dracula then?
No, I think it's John Carradine.
Oh, okay.
And he has a cool mustache too.
1946, She-Wolf of London.
That's a good one, but that's more. Don't go in expecting it to be a werewolf movie, though. It's more of she's kind of going insane and murdering people. Like she thinks she's kind of like a wolf, or it's not implied. You don't know if she's crazy or if she really is a wolf.
Oh,
but she just kind of has what do they call it back in the old days? A bonnet or something. So you never see her face. She just kind of gets men in the bushes,
like a veil.
Yeah, kind of like a veil.
Oh. And then we're having fun and more of certainly more of comedy. In 1948, Abbott and Costello Meet Frankenstein.
Classics.
Yeah. And then there was a string of Abbott and Costello films. Abbott and Costello Meet the Invisible Man in 51. Abbott and Costello Meet Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde in 53. And then, of course, in 54, we've got the classic Creature from the Black Lagoon.
Which is being remade, by the way, by James Wan. So hopefully that one's better than Wolfman. Because he's one of my favorites. That was actually, I think that might be the first Universal monster I ever watched was the Creature from the Black Lagoon. And I felt sorry for him, because you said, you felt sorry for Norman. I felt bad for the creature. He's minding his own business and they're messing with his ecosystem,
Yeah. And also, I don't know if all the prints have it, but I've seen some prints where you've got the girl whoever plays the woman. I forgot the actress who plays the woman. but you get some nudity. You get some shots of her naked underwater,
Ooh, I need to check that out.
yeah, there's some prints of that where she's naked. And
I wonder if Steven Spielberg would. I wonder if Steven Spielberg, when he made Jaws, was influenced by that. Because when you think about it, it kind of is. It kind of Jaws has some scenes that look like her under the water with her legs kicking and stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Probably was, yeah. Because I've heard him speak of loving those movies, loving the Universal monster films. I've heard Spielberg speak of that.
Quit that growling. El Santo's by my feet, and Sassafras is a little jealous.
I like Sassafras likes to be up there with you. He likes to be, I like that.
Yeah, El Santo. He went away.
Let's see El Santo. Okay, I'm a big cat person. That's me. I'm a cat person.
El Santo, come here. Yeah.
All of my cats are outdoor cats. They're all space.
Yeah, he ran off. He's usually an outdoor one too, but since it's cold, I'm like, you got to stay in the house.
And where are you at?
I'm in West.
Oh, West. Okay. Yeah, it's in the low 50s or upper 40s, low 50s today. And of course, to start raining, be raining, tomorrow, rain Wednesday. But it's just up and down, up and down. One day is supposed to be 70 degrees. The next day is supposed to be 40 degrees. And then next day, 60 degrees. And then back in the 50s again.
Let me see. El Santo.
Oh, El Santo. El Santo was not with it, so I don't want.
Yeah, he's not happy. I named him after the wrestler El Santo.
Yeah, I don't want to disturb El Santo. So.
Yeah, he showed up on my porch one day. I'm like, you look like an El Santo.
Well, and he does. He does look like an El Santo. And then we get the sequel in 1955, Revenge of the Creature.
That's an all right one. I think that's Clint Eastwood's first movie, if I'm not wrong. He has a small little scene in there. It's one of those blink and you miss it type things, but he's there.
And also in 55, we're back with Abbott and Costello, and they meet the mummy. Abbott and Costello, that's when growing up, they had a TV show, Abbott and Costello TV show. And as I grew up watching the TV show, and that's how I first got introduced to Abbott and Costello, was the TV show that they did. It wasn't until I got to be 9, 10, 11 years old where I finally started seeing their movies. Not just the stuff they did with the Universal monsters, but just the Abbott and Costello films. And let's see. And in 1956, I guess this is considered to be the last of the classic Universal monster films. The Creature Walks Among Us. And what is that?
That's the one where I think the creature. It's not the one that I like the most. I've seen it once. I think he gets like burned or something. Like they end up burning the creature and he can't go in the water.
The Black Lagoon creature?
Yeah. He can't go back in the water. So that's why he's terrorizing the town. It's a real depressing movie because he's staring out at the water and he wishes he can go in there, but he can't. I guess getting burned made him not be able to go in the water. I thought, well, hell, you could swim, but And the design's not very good either with the burnt creature. He has no scales. It's just kind of like I didn't care for it.
Then in the late 70s, they started to sort of remake and spin off the Universal films. And they started with Dracula. John Badham directed. I like it. I don't think it's great, but I like it. I think it's a pretty good Dracula film in 1979. And in 1990, and what they started having kind of more campy, having more fun with the Mummy and the Mummy Returns in 1999 and 2001. Those films that if you're in a mood for something stupid and kind of
Those movies are kind of like nostalgic for me because I remember watching those when I was a little kid. So it's almost like Brendan Fraser is kind of like an Indiana Jones. It's like an Indiana Jones type. It's more adventure.
Yeah, yeah.
And then I remember when the Scorpion King came out. I'm a wrestling fan, so when I was a little kid, I'm like, "The Rock is the Scorpion King. I got to see it."
And I'm old. See, I'm 59. So when it comes, when these films had come out, the Mummy films, I'm like in my 30s. So
Yeah.
enjoyed them. I had fun with them, but definitely could see, someone that's younger and more kids having a lot more fun.
Oh yeah. When I was a little kid, I wore that tape out.
Yeah. All right, let me do some catching up here with Acres. Creature from the Black Lagoon. What changes would you make for it to be a new movie? I really like that one. Make it like an Exhibit gone wrong or like Jaws. I don't know. Just the idea, like you said, of just this creature minding its business and just living in its, habitat and being intruded upon.
Yeah, I mean, you could even, like I said, if you want to step on some toes, you could even talk about pollution and stuff and kind of get into that kind of subtext or,
yeah,
those difficult conversations.
yeah. And like maybe they take a creature from a black moon to a deep blue sea type place.
I could see that.
Abbott and Costello Meet the Mummy is a very famous movie in Cairo. It is played on TV every week and is still used in their adverts and school curriculum. It helped start their modern film industry. Oh, but damn.
Huh. Damn, they play it every week?
Abbott and Costello Meet the Mummy. Huh.
Wow, okay.
Well, I didn't know that. Interesting. Okay, let's see. But yeah, there was three of them: the Mummy Returns, and then you mentioned the Scorpion King in 2002. In 2004, there was a girl that I was attracted to that I worked with at this restaurant up the road. It was a steakhouse, and I bussed tables, and this girl knew I liked her. She didn't really care for me as much as I liked her, but she was like, "Well, okay, you want to go to the movies? Yeah, let's go to the movies." So we went and saw this, and that is Van Helsing, 2004.
A lot of people hate it, but I have a soft spot for it too because that's another one I saw when I was a little kid, along with those Underworld movies and Resident Evil and shit. So I'm like, yeah, I kind of have a soft spot for it.
Yeah, I've only seen it once. I've only seen it that one time in the theater. I don't think I've ever saw it on video or DVD or anything. So I need to revisit it and see, because I remember watching it. I spent most of the time just looking at her, but yeah, it's kind of harkens back to those Mummy films and stuff like that, and because that old school CGI and stuff.
Yeah, it doesn't look the best, but let's see, I don't know how old I would have been. I'm 30 now, but I remember just being a kid and just because Hugh Jackman was Wolverine, I'm like, I have to see it because he's Wolverine and he's fighting monsters and shit.
Yeah. But and I don't even know if I've heard of this. This is 2008, The Mummy Tomb of the Dragon Emperor.
Oh, that's terrible. That's Jet Li is, I guess he's the mummy. I don't know. It's Abominable Snowman. So they go to China and they go to the Emperor's tomb and they open it and a bunch of abominable snowmen try to attack them.
Huh.
So I'm assuming maybe Jet Li's the mummy. I don't know.
Is it maybe kind of a so bad it's good movie where you can still have fun?
I watched it once and never again.
Yeah. Okay. So
the last time I seen it was back in the VHS days, and I never seen it since.
Well, who would you cast? she wants to know who would you cast for the new Van Helsing. Um, I keep going to Willem Dafoe. I like him in
Yeah.
everything. uh,
Hmm. I
cast
mean,
that'll be my standard answer. Who would I cast for that role?
well, he did a good job as Van Helsing in the new Nosferatu, so I guess he reprises his role in another.
Yeah, I guess he's not named Van Helsing, but he basically plays Van
Oh,
Helsing.
pretty much, yeah. Doctor, whatever the German word for it is,
Yeah. And she says I had a blast with Van Helsing. Yeah, I need to revisit it because it's been, like I say, I just saw it that one time in the theater. So
I need to rewatch it too. I think it's for free on Tubi, so hell, all I'd be paying for is with my time. So,
and I've only saw this here recently. This came out in 2010, and I think I saw it last year. And this is The Wolfman with Benicio del Toro.
Chef Kiss.
I was like,
Love
damn,
it.
this is good. I really liked it. I thought it was really well made.
Oh, Anthony Hopkins is in there.
Benicio del Toro. I guess why I kept avoiding it is because originally Rick Baker was going to do the practical effects, but they went the CGI route mainly. And I was kind of avoiding it because of that, because I wanted to see the cool, Rick Baker stuff done, like he did with American Werewolf in London. And, I guess there's still some of his stuff in the film.
Yeah.
But, so I guess that's why I kept avoiding it. But I finally.
Well, it's a good movie. It's just the stuff that they use for the CG for, like when he's transforming, I'm like, they couldn't have done that practical because it looks very kind of silly, like a video game.
When I heard that Rick Baker was going to do the effects, I said, oh, man, yes, kind of like a return to form for him, after American Werewolf in London. But I actually really enjoyed it. It didn't bother me as much as I thought it would, the CG stuff. And the performance by Anthony Hopkins and Benicio del Toro, I thought were really good. And I really enjoyed it. The Wolfman, in 2010. But yeah, that kind of catches us up to, what was it, 2014's Dracula Untold, which you said I need to see that.
Yeah, it's a good one. It's more of an action movie. It's like the Vlad the Impaler type Dracula.
Yeah.
So it's not, I don't really consider it a horror film. It's more like those mummy movies, so where it's more like action adventure type of film.
Okay, let's see what she has to say here. Brandon and Jay Reel are named the new CEOs of Universal Monsterverse. Assigned John Carpenter, Toby Hooper, Craven, and Eggers to each one. Well, we don't have Toby Hooper anymore. We don't have Craven anymore. But Carpenter, I think Carpenter is giving it up. He's too busy smoking pot and making his music with his, I think his son. I don't know if they still tour. They were touring.
Well, hopefully, if he did do one, it'd be better than that. Did he remake Children of the Damned or Village of the Damned? And it was terrible.
And was it The Ward? Which I still have never seen The Ward.
That's one of those movies. I don't know if you remember Hastings. I bought the DVD, and I can't tell you a thing about that movie. It's one of those movies I watched and just kind of forgot what it was about.
And of course, I've told my story before, but I was at Texas Frightmare Weekend, which I was at several of those back when I was promoting my movie Dawn. And I had written a prequel book to it that I was promoting that. So, and when I was at the Texas Frightmare Weekend, I would do interviews, that I could set up for Dead Pit, So I did William Forsythe, and several others that I interviewed. But John Carpenter was there that year. So the year I went with my sister, and I was in the elevator. It was just me and John Carpenter in the elevator, and he's going up to his floor where he's got his table. And so I wanted to say something to him, and he actually started the conversation. He goes, "Hey, you having a good weekend?" I said, "Yes, sir." And "Yes, sir, it's great to meet you." I said, "Do you know when The Ward is going to be released?" This is before it was released, because and he goes, "Man, I hadn't finished it yet." He always was kind of annoyed with me for asking that question. I haven't finished the damn movie yet, man. I said, oh, well, okay. I'm sorry. And he goes, oh, no. You have a great one. You have a great weekend. And the door opens and he walks off. So that's my John Carpenter story.
Hey, always one thing that kept me away from the horror conventions is I was always told never meet your heroes, you know. So that's kind of like my thing. I just I don't know.
Yeah. What's that? I really very seldom had any kind of bad experience. There
I
was
don't know. I wanted to go one year and I had people warn me about Tom Savini, so I'm like, yeah.
well, the first year I went, Tom Savini was there. He was always there. Tom Savini was always on the guest list. At every convention I went to, Tom Savini was always there. The first year, he was an ungodly asshole. He wouldn't talk to anybody. He would barely look at anybody. He'd sit there, he'd sign the autograph, and he'd pose for the picture. He wouldn't smile, and he wouldn't engage with anyone. He wouldn't really talk with anybody. But a couple of years later, he started to sort of warm up and get more. He would talk to people more. He would actually smile when he posed for pictures. I don't know if someone talked to him and says, "Look, Tom, you gotta stop being an asshole. You gotta stop that." I don't know, or he just got in a better mood.
Yeah, it's just either the people I want to see are dead, or either they're deceased, or it's like, man, if I had a bad experience with Savini or someone, that might give me a complex with their movies. I don't want to watch The Burning no more. Fuck that guy.
Because even before that happened, I'd always heard that Tom Savini's an asshole, and so, he was. So it wasn't a big surprise to me because everyone had told me, yeah, Tom Savini's a jerk. He won't talk to you, and he didn't. So I didn't get his autograph. But 2 years later, he was a lot more talkative, and I had a table. I was promoting my Dawn Year 7 book, and he had the table behind me. So he would sometimes say a few words to me. He goes, hey man, how you doing? He was, he would say a few words to me. So I thought, okay, I'm going to get his autograph. I'm going to get a picture with him. That's back in the day where $20 would get you a picture and an autograph.
Oh, you got to get a second job now if you want to go up there.
Now it's like, $200 for the picture and, $300 for the autograph or whatever, $20 got both. Got you the autograph, got you a picture. I thought, okay, I'm finally going to break down. I'm going to get a picture with Tom Savini and get his autograph. And what I got was he had these bootleg DVDs he was selling of his David Letterman appearances. And it was just homemade, just a homemade DVD with, it had a little picture of him on the cover with David Letterman. And it's just a homemade DVD. It's like, this bastard's, if they ever found out about it, they'd probably sue his ass, because he probably wasn't supposed to be doing that. He was selling them for $20, but I bought his homemade DVD because I used to watch him back in the day, watch David. Every time Tom Savini was going to meet David Letterman, I'd watch it. So he signed the DVD, and I posed for a picture, and he smiled. He smiled when I took the picture with him. So he was a lot cooler then. He got better, I don't know how he is these days, but he got better. And let's see. Aker says Home Alone director Chris Columbus and his daughter produced Nosferatu. Maybe they should be made the new CEOs of Universal Monsterverse.
I thought we were the new CEOs.
Yeah, you said we were. But I didn't know that. I didn't know Chris Columbus and his daughter produced Nosferatu. I didn't know that.
Yeah. I saw that Eggers was saying he wanted to make a werewolf movie for Christmas of next year. So we'll see how that turns out.
Well, he hasn't made a bad movie yet. Like I said, I still haven't seen Northman, but yeah, he's been.
I haven't seen The Witch, but I had people recommend that one to me. They said I'd really like it, so that's on my list to check out.
Definitely watch it, but watch it with subtitles, because they speak English, but they speak the original dialect during that time period. And even though they're speaking English, you still need subtitles.
It's like
real thick accents, and also just the dialect, the way they say what they're saying,
Hmm.
Because the very first time I saw it, I watched it without subtitles, and half the time I didn't know what the hell they were saying. I was enjoying the movie, but I had to find. I watched it recently and watched it with subtitles and enjoyed it a lot better because because you know, because he's very, I guess you could tell me with Nosferatu, but he's very
Authentic.
authentic. Yeah, he likes to with the dialect, the way people talk, the language they speak, the way they say things. Wants to be very.
Well, it's interesting because I didn't think about it till you said it, but in Nosferatu, when Callan Orlor talks, sometimes they do put subtitles for certain scenes
Hmm.
because he kind of has a thick accent. It's not for every scene, but there's some to where it actually shows up on the screen. So I wonder if that's why.
Well, yeah. Well, you got to see The Witch. It's really good, and it's But no, I don't want to even tell you. But it's
Yeah, I
you
gotta check it. I gotta check
gotta see
it
it. Yeah.
out. That's
Particularly
gonna go up.
if you like The Lighthouse and Nosferatu.
Yeah, that's
And
gonna go up there with The Substance because people have been telling me to watch The Substance, so I'm gonna have to watch that and The Witch.
well, and that was another one I finally paid for. They had it for basically $6 on it was $5.95 or something like that on the Amazon channel. So I finally sat down and watched The Substance, and oh man, I think it's great that a movie like that uh, is getting the attention that it's getting. Demi Moore won the Golden Globe for it. She's nominated for an Oscar. It's nominated for Best Picture, and it goes in places that are just like, holy shit. you know, uh,
Huh.
you know, if you're a fan of the old classic body horror stuff that Cronenberg did, um, it goes in places that just out Cronenberg's Cronenberg. You're going to see some stuff that is like, and it's all practical stuff. It's all practical makeup, not a bunch of CGI bullshit. It's real, physical makeup. And what they put Demi Moore through is like, good God, I don't know how she survived this movie with what they put her through. I imagine, she definitely something she had to recover from when this movie was over.
Damn, I gotta see this now.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Particularly the latter part of the film, what they put her through. Now, the girl, I forget the actress's name that kind of plays her doppelganger, her younger version. She's really good too. Um, but yeah, Demi Moore, if you're a fan of Demi Moore, because I've been a big fan of Demi Moore since 30 years ago or whatever, great to see her again in a movie. And just her performance is really good. And it makes a good, even though it really goes, I won't say overboard, but it goes to the extreme as far as the physical stuff, the body horror stuff. But also it makes a point about aging actresses, about how they're just sort of discarded when they get to be a certain age. They're not getting the parts that they got before. They're not, considered, attractive or whatever. It's got a point to it. It's got a message. But it goes to an extreme, particularly with the physical stuff.
Just don't eat supper before I watch it. Then,
yeah,
all right.
Yeah, it might be something that you might want to, save your appetite. Yeah, don't eat while you're watching it, particularly the last half of the film. Yeah, it's something. Yeah, you don't want to be dining on burritos or whatever while you're watching. Yeah. But yeah, Demi Moore's great, and like I say, the actress that plays her younger version or whatever, is really good. But it's a good movie to go in not knowing anything about it.
I didn't know what it was about. I might have seen a preview or whatever.
That's the best way to watch a movie like that, is to go in completely dry and just take it in. Because it's going to take you on. It'll take you on a ride. I'll say that.
All right, I'll check it out.
Yeah, you'll go for a ride with The Substance. Yeah, you'll definitely go for a ride. Um, and let's see. I like The Mummy's Hand from the 40s. I don't think I've seen that. I don't think I've seen The Mummy's Hand. Um, but yeah, it's nice that we're getting films like that would harken back to the old days, the old classic monster movies. Even though there's some movies that maybe aren't as good, like Wolfman. But
I'm gonna have the dog has to go potty. I'm gonna let him out. I'll be right back.
okay, sir. Okay, and but yeah, trying to think if there's something. Hang on. Ooh. Well, I guess we'll wind this up here pretty soon. But is there something that you've seen recently, a movie or something, or a TV show or something you've seen recently that you would suggest, or you would?
Well, it's not a horror film, but if you haven't seen Iron Claw,
I haven't seen it.
it's a very good film. It's about the wrestling family, the Von Erichs, and all the tragedy they kind of went through.
Yeah, I've heard of that.
It's a drama, but it's kind of a hard watch. But I mean, normally movies don't get me on an emotional level, but like I think everybody was bawling like a baby at the end of that film.
And I've told this story, but I've got a Von Erich story. My father, I wasn't a big wrestling fan, but my father was. And so just for something to do, the sort of a bonding thing, I would watch wrestling with my father. So we watched way back in the, 70s. I would watch wrestling with my father, and that was back when the Iron Sheik and Fritz Von Erich, the original wrestler, the old man, Fritz Von Erich. But anyway, there was at the local high school in Mahia, there was a wrestling show. And one of the wrestlers, and I don't know which one it was a Von Erich, one of the Von Erich brothers. Now, I don't know which one it was. I don't know if it was Kevin or who it was. I just know it was one of the Von Erich brothers. And I was sitting on the front row with my father. And so they're wrestling, and the Von Erich is right on the edge of the rope, and whoever the opponent is gives Von Erich an open-handed slap in the face. And Von Erich's, face, he's really dramatically, he slaps him, and Von Erich, head flops back, and a big wad of spit goes flying out of Von Erich's mouth and hits me in the cheek. So I can say that I've had part of Von Erich's DNA on my skin.
There's actually a cage match in Axel I think it's at the Axel High School I plan on going to. So they still do those little venues sometimes.
Yeah. So I can say I've had a part of one of the Von Erich brothers on my body.
Yeah.
And it was a big chunk of spit.
Oh, Lord.
And it hit me in the face, and I had to swipe it off,
Did you get grossed out real bad? Like
I was laughing. I thought it was funny. My father was laughing. I said, "Hey, did you get JJ? Was that? Yeah, he spit on me." My father was laughing. I was laughing. I thought that was more funny than grossed out. But and I just wish I knew which Von Erich it was. It might have been Kevin. It was one of the Von Erich brothers. But he spit on me. So okay, that's something I can. That's a story I can tell. I got spit on by one of the Von Erich brothers. um, but yeah, I definitely want to see that. I love any kind of documentary. So
It's like Zac Efron. He does a good, like, he proves his acting chops in that movie. I know a lot of people kind of think of him as the Disney guy, but he definitely proves his acting chops in that film.
and a movie that I'll recommend if you want to have a laugh, but it's pretty gory too. But it's called Get Away. Get
Get
Away.
away.
Get Away, but it's two words. Get Away. And I think it's on Shutter. I don't know if you have. Do you have Shutter?
Yeah, have it through Prime. Yeah.
I think it. Yeah, me too. I have it through Prime. It's either on Prime or on Shutter, but I think it's on Shutter. Get Away, and it's Nick Frost. I don't know if he directed. I think I know he wrote it. He stars in it. He might have directed it, but and of course, Shaun of the Dead. But it's kind of a comedic version of Wicker Man, which the Nick Cage version's an unintentionally comedic version, but this is an intentionally comedic version, kind of a comedic version of Wicker Man. There's some differences, but it's similar. Going to this, this country or whatever that's having these, rituals, human rituals, sacrifices and things. And it was funny, and I was really enjoying it. But it goes into a direction like the halfway point where it went from like a 7 to an 11 for me. It just went, oh God, now this is the best movie ever. And I won't even say what it is, but it goes in a direction that you don't see coming. That it's like, oh shit, this is great.
And it's called Get Away.
Get Away, and it's
Okay.
Nick Frost. Like I say, Shaun of the Dead, and the British comedian, in the movies he made. But it's Nick Frost. And I think I know he wrote it and he stars in it, but he might have directed it too. But Get Away, highly recommend that. And once you see it, I want to hear what you had to say about it, because, like I say, it starts off in kind of like, well, I've seen this before, but it's funny. It's a comedy, but it gets really gory. There's some good gore scenes in it too. But it goes in a direction like at the midway point, it's like, oh shit, this is great. You don't see it coming. I didn't see it coming. So the direction it goes. Yeah, Get Away. Well, good. Brandon, this has been a good one. Talking about the Universal movies and all that.
Yeah.
And
hopefully I did good for a first time on a podcast. This is kind of new to me.
Right, you couldn't tell it. It's like you've done this before, but yeah, hopefully you're up for doing this again.
Yeah, I'll be down to do it again. Like I said, I can talk about anything. I'm young, but I'm into kind of older stuff too. Like, even like with music, I'm probably the only 30-year-old that listens to Lefty Frizzell and all that kind of stuff. So.
Well, I'm just old anyway, so
yeah,
so I love old music.
Yeah, I'm kind of like a historian. So when I find something I like even with wrestling, it's like I have to learn everything about it. Same thing with horror movies.
Well, and that's the thing is, kind of like with you and a lot of people that are talking about these movies that they grew up watching and stuff. And I feel like 100 years old because.
Oh yeah, because you were 30 when The Mummy came out.
I was 30 years old when that movie came out, and I saw it when I was 9, and shit. And Acres, we only had one participant, but Acres, thank you for all that you've participated in today. But yeah, we'll do this again soon. And be thinking, Brandon, of a subject, that anything we can talk about. Usually we talk about these.
If you want to get controversial, what about separating the art from the artist?
Yeah, we definitely could speak with that.
Because there's people, especially nowadays, that are like, "Oh, that movie you can't watch it no more because of this person or this person did that," or you
Yeah,
know.
yeah, definitely. Uh, yeah, there's definitely a lot of versions of that. Uh, that that's a good subject. Yeah, separating the and how good are you about doing that? Separating the art from the artist.
It depends on what the person did, but normally I could get past the film, like with Jeepers Creepers. I didn't know who the hell Victor Salva was when I watched. That's another movie I grew up watching, so I could separate it from that. But when the Dead Pit guys talked about Clown House, you can't separate because that he did what he did on that set of that film.
Yeah, yeah.
So it's one of those things to where I guess it depends on the movie, you know.
Well, and that's the thing. I really I so enjoy Jeepers Creepers that I can watch that film and enjoy that film and
Yeah,
not, separate the art from the artist in that respect. Um, but then there's films that what was it, Powder? Uh,
yeah,
it was
where you find out that that the back like the what his backstory for that character was supposed to be, and you're just kind of like that just ruins the whole movie for me.
Yeah. Well, and then there's some cases, particularly with Victor Salva, where it's hard to separate the art from the artist because you kind of see them converge. You kind of see the movie he's making
Yeah,
reflect what he did
like
in
that
real
scene
life.
with Jeff Goldblum and Powder, to where he's just gets like, that's really inappropriate."
Well, and in Jeepers Creepers too, you got these guys on top of that bus, and they're just glistening, and they're sunbathing, and they're shirtless, and they're like, and it's like he's really honing in on their bodies and their glistening tanned bodies.
Like, and that's not even realistic. They wouldn't let them climb up there. Hell, I used to get chewed out for trying to open the shitty window. You remember the little shitty windows? You had to
Yeah, yeah.
quit doing that shit out.
Uh, it's movies like that or cases like that. It's hard to
Or
separate.
even like with Roman Polanski, it's like some people will give other people a pass. Like there's a lot of people that will cancel Salva, but then they have no problem with Roman Polanski or
Yeah,
Polanski or however you say his name.
Roman. I call him Polanski. Roman Polanski. I don't know if that's right or not. You know. Uh, but yeah, and that's a good subject because, like I say, there are cases where I can do that, separate the art from the artist. You know, you look at what a lot of people were accused of, later in life, or actors, what they were accused of or what they were accused of doing. Um, and
Hell,
but
I mean, that would be a good one because you could just name the list on it. It's not even, it doesn't have to be horror movies. It could be like Bill Cosby or Weinstein or some of these things. But that's what I laughed is everyone talking about. Well, I'm going to boycott every movie Weinstein ever was involved in. It's like, well, you better not
you
watch
won't have,
nothing Miramax.
you won't have much to watch.
You ain't gonna have very much.
Yeah. And Michael Jackson, of course, considered him the greatest pop artist of all time, and what he was accused of, in his later life. Um,
Or
and
even like with John. Well, I don't know. Would John Landis count with the what happened with the Twilight Zone thing?
that was just stupid management.
Yeah,
Whatever. Uh,
it was an accident. Like he didn't mean for it to happen, but you
oh, of
know,
course, yeah, no, it's hard to. I don't know. He definitely made a mistake. He made a huge mistake, and people lost their lives because of that mistake. Um, but I can't hate on John Landis because
nah.
I love, I love the Blues Brothers. I love American Werewolf in London. I love so many of his movies. I love, Trading Places, whatever. So, um, yeah, I can't hate on John Landis. But yeah, that was just a really bad decision, just bad decisions by him and other people that led to that happening. Um,
Yeah.
but when you come down to being basically a child molester, well, that's a different story.
Well,
you know,
yeah, it's different. There's different stuff. It's kind of like, or even like with Francis Ford Coppola, who knew what happened and hired the guy back and produced like almost all his movies. Like Coppola didn't do it, but it's kind of like, well, I mean, you're kind of putting his foot back in the door, you know?
yeah.
So it's kind of like it's kind of like, well, if you separate the art from the artist, is like, how far are we going to go back, you know? Because it changed after watching the Dead Pit tragedies in Tinseltown. It changed the way I thought about Coppola, really, too.
And that's something I haven't heard a lot about that. So that's something I don't know if I want to investigate that or not
No,
because
because it kind of gave me a complex because I didn't watch nothing Salvo for a long time, and then I was like, man, I don't even really want to watch The Godfather
oh God,
anymore.
I mean, one of my favorite movies ever is
Yeah,
Apocalypse.
I don't know.
I
It's
love
pretty.
Apocalypse Now. Um,
I mean, if you ain't seen the Dead Pit tragedies in Tinseltown, if you watch it, it's really like, if all that stuff is accurate, it's like, damn, Coppola's an asshole. Because
well, I don't know.
he sued the kid that was a victim for not coming back and doing what's it called, the ADR or whatever, the audio stuff.
Huh,
So it's kind of like, well, I mean, he was a victim of a horrible crime. It's kind of a good reason to miss work, you know.
uh, but yeah, good subject. Good subject.
We'll if you want, we could do that one.
We'll do that one. And yeah, be thinking of other things too, what we can talk about. Because I usually do try to do like a couple hours because we're closing in on it's 9 o'clock. So yeah, this has been a good one. But yeah, be thinking that's a good subject. Anything else that we may can cover that maybe that subject might lead to something else too, some other
Oh yeah.
similar subject. But yeah, usually do I'm open to any kind of subject, movies, music, uh, anything like.
Hell, I even read books, and I read the Amityville Horror by Jay Anson not too long ago, so I could even compare books to films.
That's something that me being so nearsighted, I need to be outdoors usually to read out
Yeah.
in the daylight. And Stephen King's my big go-to author to read.
Oh yeah.
Um, and so I've got a ton of Stephen King books.
I think
And
Kubrick did The Shining better though, but that's just I know that's blasphemy, but that's just my opinion.
well, The Shining is a great horror film. One of the classic, one of the best ever made. But it is a horrible Stephen King adaptation.
Yeah, it has basically damn near nothing to do with it, but
because Kubrick just basically said, "Well, fuck you. I'm making my movie. This is the story I want to make," and that always upset Stephen King.
I know. It's just that it's one of those deals to where you read The Shining, good book, good story, but I kind of like what Kubrick did better.
Well, he made a different movie. It's almost a separate thing. His movie,
Yeah.
book. It's almost two completely different things. But no, I love The Shining. I love the movie. It's a classic movie. That was the one argument that Stephen King says is that Jack Nicholson is pretty much nuts from the beginning. He doesn't become nuts. He just starts off kind of half crazy and just gets more crazy.
That's fair. I mean, that's fair, but it's also Jack Nicholson. It says I'm used to seeing him all crazy, even in like non-horror movies. He's kind of crazy looking.
Was that early in the film when they're driving?
Yeah, and he's like, he just looks like he had enough,
And what's the line? You hear that, honey? He saw it on the television.
Yeah.
And the way he says that,
Well, don't they say he broke the kid's arm or something in the film?
Well, in the book too. That's He was an alcoholic, and he's a recovering alcoholic, and he had grabbed his son's arm. His kid was getting into some stuff that he had, or some artwork or something, and he had grabbed his son's arm and broke his arm. And it's in the book too that he had broken his arm. And there's that great scene with Jack Nicholson in the bar, and grabbed his arm. Just great performance by Nicholson.
I said I was sorry.
Yeah. uh, but yeah, great movie. But I recently read The Shining, and I'm like, yeah, it's as an adaptation, it's horrible, but
That
it's
could be a topic in and of itself. Just the differences between that book and that film. Because isn't there like hedge animals or something, if memory serves?
well, they made the TV movie, which a lot of
Yeah.
people really hate that TV movie. I think the TV movie's all right. I don't mind it. It's a more faithful adaptation of the book because Stephen King wrote the screenplay for the TV movie. He appears in it in a cameo, and Stephen King's in it. Um, he's a band leader in the TV movie, and I don't hate it. I think it's okay.
Yeah.
The Kubrick movie's a lot better because it's a classic, of course. Um, but anyway, let's see him one more time. See the cat one more time because before we
Oh,
go,
I got her down because
you
she's
got
looks like she's about to do a hairball on stream. So
but but okay, thank you, Brandon, for participating. We'll do this again soon. It's great that I've got someone else to join me on these night shows, and you've got some good ideas there. So we'll do this again soon. And
okay,
I'll keep checking Instagram because that's where I'll send you a message.
and
And
if,
if you got
if any of y'all drink beer, get you some Pivovar, local in Waco. They brew it.
oh, cool. Yeah, I'm about 40 miles from Waco. So
Yeah, pick you up some Pivovar for y'all that drink. It's good stuff.
Pivo. Okay, well, thank you, Brandon. Thank you, Akers, for tuning in. And as I always say, if you would please hit that thumbs up, spread the word, help get the word out about this show if you're enjoying what you're seeing. And this has definitely been a good one. Thank you, Brandon. I'll talk
Thank
to
you,
you.
Sassafras. And
Sassafras, yeah. Love seeing Sassafras. And yeah, we'll talk to you guys soon. Thank you, Brandon. And thank you, everyone that's tuned in. And you have a good one.
sure will. All right, I'm about to watch The Substance.